hitting the pause button. Canada avoids Trump's tariffs for now. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Going beyond the headlines.
Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Well, we're off the hook for now. There is a 30-day pause now on Donald Trump's threat to impose tariffs on all Canadian exports. That reprieve came after President Trump spoke with Prime Minister Trudeau twice yesterday, once in the morning and again in the afternoon. And it came hours after a similar delay on tariffs was announced by the President of Mexico. According to the U.S. President, Canada is off the hook for now because it's promised to appoint a fentanyl czar and to list Mexican drug cartels as terrorist organizations and to participate in a joint strike force to combat organized crime. Mr. Trudeau, in a statement on social media, said his government will now move ahead with its previously announced $1.3 billion border plan that included new helicopters, technology, and personnel. Improved border security is something President Trump has been demanding for weeks, but he's also claimed the United States subsidizes Canada and has repeatedly suggested Canada become the 51st state. But for politicians in this country, a 30-day delay is a win and a wake-up call. This was the Premier of Quebec, François Legault, after learning the news, suggesting Canada is not in the clear just yet.
Of course, I was happy because it gives us 30 days to have better programs, to make sure we speak with all important companies, with all sectors, that we can be more prepared. But for me, it's not a complete victory. For me, I still think that Mr. Trump wants to attack Canada. He said things during last weekend, like if it wasn't of United States, Canada wouldn't be a viable country. It's terrible to hear things like that. So we have to be ready to all kind of scenarios with this guy.
Border security and the flow of illegal drugs has been part of the focus for the federal government and various provincial premiers. Before the delay was announced, Premier Scott Moe of Saskatchewan spoke at length about the need for Canada to step up and address Trump's concerns about the border.
Any contraband, whether it be firearms, drugs, or illegal migrants that's crossing the border north or south, we should all do our level best to ensure that's not the case. Any contraband that is in an individual's pocket in one of our communities needs to be removed as well. That's why we had put a number of provincial police officers that will be focusing on that, 20 to 50 kilometers near our border crossings. Right at the border crossing is the responsibility of the CBSA and the government of Canada, and I would say that if they brought that in under the military arm, we could have our military present there as well. What we did actually was through some conversations that we had, for example, with the state of Montana, where they are doing something similar on the southern side of the border. And so if you have state troopers and state law enforcement officers for the 50 kilometers south of the border, you have provincial officers having a focus on the 50 kilometers north of those border crossings, and you have a robust border crossing system that is working in lockstep, whether it be American border officials or Canadian officials. I think we can very quickly secure the borders that we have.
The 30-day delay and the announcement that the Trudeau government will appoint someone to be a fentanyl czar was welcome news for the Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. In a social media posting, Smith said that's something the Alberta government had been calling for because it would, quote, be a critical part of reaching a deal to avoid tariffs. Premier Smith had been urging the Trudeau government to appoint a border czar.
Let me say it again. The one thing that we can do this week, in just the next couple of days, to have the best chance to avoid tariffs is to show clear and unequivocal action to secure the border. This should start with the appointment of a Canadian border czar to work with the new American border czar to jointly crack down hard on fentanyl and illegal migrants. Is this likely to end the threat of tariffs entirely? I don't think so. I think there'll be other things that we will need to work on, and we will do so. But I am convinced, after speaking with dozens of elected U.S. representatives, administration officials, and the president himself, that this is the most important first step. Whoever it is, we've got lots of retired generals. I had a former retired general be my deputy minister, Paul Winnick. I've volunteered his name up, but that's who I think it should be to show that we're serious. But that's the kind of person that we need.
Peter Navarro, who served 4 months in prison for defying a congressional subpoena, is now a senior trade counselor to President Trump. When he spoke with the news media just before the 30-day delay was announced, he suggested that Canada is fighting the wrong kind of war.
The difference between Mexico and Canada thus far is that Canada thinks we're fighting a trade war with them. That's not the case here. This is a drug war. And I think it's important that if Canadian citizens themselves can understand that what we are trying to do here is stop the killing of Americans by these deadly drugs, to stop Canada from allowing terrorists on the watch list, up to 100 have already come in, from entering our country. That will be the way to find a resolution of this problem. So let's see what happens. The boss always likes to say that.
So as for the calendar, one of the next important dates would be March 5th. It's 30 days from yesterday. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Well, let's get right to the big news of the day, the 30-day reprieve from the Trump tariff threat for Canada. Professor Ian Lee back with us from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Welcome back.
Good afternoon, Rob.
What did you think of the news, first of all, the 30-day delay?
I believe that was planned from the get-go by Trump. Let me explain. This is not a conspiracy theory at all. It's just based on the paper trail of decisions. First off, let me tell you my assumption, because anytime you're discussing anything, you always have assumptions. I completely reject, and I'm not here to defend Trump. I don't agree with him. I think the tariffs are wrong. But I also completely reject this dominant assumption I'm reading every day, hearing every day from leaders and from politicians and cabinet ministers. Trump is a bozo. He's an idiot. Doesn't know what is going through his head. He doesn't understand economics, doesn't understand exchange rates. This may make people feel good. But, I'm from the real world. I was 9 years in banking. I've worked in probably 4 or 5 very large organizations. And I don't believe that anybody gets to the top who's an idiot. I know. There's lots of people who tell me you're naive, Ian. Well, I've worked in big organizations, and I don't believe it's so competitive. Same as the NFL. You don't become an NFL quarterback because you can't play football. You can't become a bank CEO because you know nothing about banking. And I don't believe you can become the president of the United States because you know nothing.
All right. So why do you think it was planned all along then?
What I think he's done is he did state already, he's told his key economic advisors, each of them have vast experience in Wall Street and the capital markets. He said, I want you to get back to me by April 1, using your vast resources from your government departments, crunch the numbers, get your econometricians in there. And what he wants, I know exactly what he wants. He wants good data on what's the impact of his tariffs on each of the major industries, because there's many, 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 many industries in the United States. Hundreds of them, thousands of them. And so he wants to know, because he doesn't want to go and shoot himself in the foot, even though there's lots of people that think he does. He doesn't, because he's not a bozo. So what he wants to do is he wants good data, and they've got awesome computers of the U.S. economy and the Department of Commerce, because I've used it, at least the part that's available to the public, as well as the Federal Reserve, and they'll get their econometricians to crunch the incidence of the tariffs because it's not equal. Some industries will be hurt badly by his tariffs, and some will not be hurt, because he wants to calibrate and be surgical. So that was his real deadline, was April the 1. So he told us February the 1 and Mexico to shake us up, to intimidate us, to bully us, yes, to soften us up, yes, to start making concessions, yes, and we did, yes. I don't know why people aren't following these dots. And then he's going to tell us on April 1, And by the way, in his discussions, he's actually talking about, my God, he almost used the word negotiations. He says, we'll come back and discuss this further. That's called negotiations, everybody. So he's expecting that this is going to lead to further negotiations on April 1 or around April 1. I hope they do. And I hope that the Canadian government has finally woken up from their deep slumber, right, like Rip Van Winkle, and are furiously working behind the scenes on their own analysis to figure out, okay, what's the impact if we open up supply management, if we open up the telecom sector, the airlines, the banking sector, and we go to 2% on national defense spending like almost overnight. What do we have to cut to come up with the funding? I hope we're finally doing our due diligence and our homework.
All right. Well, we'll get to that in the second half of our conversation. Kind of lessons learned. We'll kind of do a postmortem on the last few weeks, and where we go from here. But so if it's a 30-day reprieve, so what do you think is going to happen 30 days from now?
It's what I'm saying in my paper that's being published tomorrow in the National Post, the paper that does this analysis explanation of Stephen Marin, Ph.D. economics, Harvard, by the way, who was appointed by, oh my God, the bozo Trump appointed him as the chief economist to, guess who? The White House, the president. And this guy's written this amazing paper. And so
you talked about that last week,
what he's going to do is what he said in the paper. He says, we're going to go to those countries that have protected markets, that protect certain industries from American access from American companies. And he put it in black and white. He says, we're going to put tariffs on you until you open them up. So we're going to go, he's going to obviously come to the Canadians and the Mexicans and say, okay, bing, bang, boom. These are the industries that you're protecting and stopping us from our companies from going in. You either open them up or here's what the tariffs we're going to whack you with. That's what he's going to do. It's spelled out in the paper. Trump's been saying this publicly. I don't understand why our leadership cannot connect the dots.
Right. So you think in the crosshairs, and you've mentioned this before, all of those so-called protected industries, right? And including cultural industries as well. Right.
And by the way, we could say, no way are we going to appease him. We're going to stand tall. Good. Go stand up there and get shot at.
Dollar for dollar. Blow for blow. Yeah. Right.
By the way, can we talk about that right now?
We have 1 minute, if you can do it in a minute. Yeah.
I'll do it in a minute. The impact is going to be devastating on who? On universities? Of course not. We don't get laid off. You crazy? Hospitals? Of course not. School boards? Of course not. Who's going to fall on? Big banks? Of course not. They're very deeply financed with lots of cash reserves. It's going to fall disproportionately on small business across Canada because I lent to them for 9 years, and they tend to be very small, very few resources, undercapitalized, and they have the highest failure rate at the best of times. And our small business sector will go down like 10 pins in a bowling alley. And they employ 60% of the total 16 million Canadians that are employed in the private sector, 20 million total, 16 million in the private sector. 60% of that 16 million is in SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprise. And that's where you're going to see the unemployment really take off because those small businesses cannot survive a trade war. So I didn't say every one of them will go bankrupt, but there's going to be lots of them.
Okay. Yeah, I took a call from a guy from Calgary just yesterday during the open line segment who is in the sprinkler fire suppression business, and he can only buy his equipment from the United States, has a dozen employees. He's already getting killed by the dollar being so low, and that if these tariffs come into effect, he'd be out of business. So maybe an example that you're citing there. Okay, lessons learned from the last few weeks and what the Canadian government should be doing now to confront this threat. I'm Rob Snow here with Professor Ian Lee, one of our weekly contributors here on Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow
Returns on News Radio.
We're back with Professor Ian Lee from the Sprout School of Business at Carleton University with us every week. So given the threat of these tariffs and now the 30-day reprieve, what are the lessons that should be learned by Canadian government officials after having to confront this threat? What should they be doing now?
There's many, many, many things they should be doing. First and foremost, they should be pounding the table or the microphone or whatever the metaphor is, and taking up President Trump on his offer of only 3 or 4 days ago, saying, I'm willing to move the negotiations for CUSMA forward to right now. And all we heard was the crashing sounds of silence from 10 premiers and the Liberal government in Ottawa. Instead of them saying, yes, we want negotiations now. Instead, they went to all kinds of talk about retaliation. Exactly the wrong message. We're the mouse. They're the 2-ton elephant. I have tons of studies, and they're not just Canadian studies. There's American studies, European studies, where you have a large economy gets in a trade war with a small economy. I do not know of a single study anywhere that says the small economy that's 1/10 the size of the big economy can beat the big economy. I defy anybody to show me such a study. It defies logic, it defies arithmetic, it defies common sense, and it defies reality. So we cannot get into these ridiculous, absurd, retaliatory tariffs which double the impact or exaggerate. We're pouring gasoline on a raging fire. The Trump tariffs are the raging fire. So what we're saying is let's pour more gasoline on the fire. That's what they're saying. That's what Chrystia Freeland's saying. That's what Carney is saying and Trudeau's saying. And they're wrong. C.D. Howe has come out today against that. So is the Chamber of Commerce. I don't know a business group that's saying retaliatory tariffs are a good idea because they understand they're going to get killed. So we got to take retaliatory tariffs off the table. We got to get to negotiations. But that's just the beginning. We've got to go to the premiers. The prime minister has never shown leadership on this. He's got to go to the premiers and say, I'm going to give you 30 days to invalidate all your provincial barriers, or I'm going to invoke the federal undertaking clause of the federal constitution and invalidate your laws. Threaten them. Take a page out of Trump's book. Scare the hell out of the premiers. Tell him that the federal government is going to finally use the authority it's had for 150 years and has never been used by any government. And we're going to invoke that and invalidate any legislation that is protective against other provincial products and services from other provincial provinces. So we can do that. Thirdly, we got to start diversifying our trade big time. Mr. Trudeau made an enormous, catastrophic strategic mistake last summer when the premier of Japan, that's the third largest economy in the world after U.S. and China. And they practically begged him to ship LNG. Said, we need it to get off dirty coal. And so did the Prime Minister of South Korea, and so did the Chancellor of Germany. And Trudeau's phrase was, "Niet, no business case." At the very moment, President Biden was approving massive increases in LNG exports to those very countries that he said there was no business case. We've got to do that. We've got to open up and remove the red tape and the barriers to getting product out of the ports. We've got to build more pipelines, both east and west, the one to St. John's, so it's not using Russian oil that's being laundered through India. As the
Premier Legault put the kibosh on that again in the last 24 hours. He said there's no social acceptability for it in Quebec. So
let's use the clause in the federal constitution, which is a bigger crisis. I don't think Quebec is the bigger crisis right now. I think keeping the country solvent is.
Okay.
So there's things we can do.
We'll see where we are next week, Professor. We'll see where we are next week, next month, a year from now.
Okay.
Look forward to your insight through all of it. Bye-bye.
Great. Bye.
Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Again, he'll have an opinion piece in the National Post tomorrow on Wednesday. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio. The Newsday Panel.
Yes, it is time for our Newsday Panel. Nick McRoberts is back. He's Vice President of Winston Wilmot. How are you today?
Good, Rob. How are you?
No, I'm good. Great to hear from you. Alex Creston, Vice President, Crestview Strategy. Alex usually works out of Toronto. How are things down there today?
Things are great. Sunny day.
That's good. That's good. So, WTH, what the heck just happened? How did Canada go from this, serious economic threat of tariffs to a 30-day delay in just a few hours, given that these Canadian border security announcements, they were made weeks ago, this $1.3 billion border security plan? What do you think happened yesterday Alex, why don't you go first? Go ahead, Alex.
Well, I think that President Trump was trying to get us to name a price. To sort of a negotiating tactic to get the customer to name the price. That way, you don't inadvertently underbid yourself. So that's what he was trying to do. And I think that the whole purpose of this thing was just to see what they could get as much as they could. Maybe they're saying now that maybe he wasn't aware of the promise that had been made earlier a few weeks ago. Then Prime Minister went and added to it. But I think that this has been part of the plan all along.
Okay. Nick, what do you think? What do you think happened yesterday to settle this for now, anyway?
Yeah, I think to the extent that it was a negotiating tactic and having us name our price, I think part of that is because President Trump didn't know what he wants, or he doesn't know what he wants. He wants everything and he wants nothing. What we saw yesterday was the unpredictable nature and volatility of his administration and his own tactics. Really what the Canadian government capitulated on, if you could even call it that, is announcements that were already made. So, I think we just had to catch him at the right moment and reconfirm what we were doing to meet the targets that he's talking about. Pivot slightly on things like, listing the cartels as terrorists and appointing a fentanyl czar. This is just a little bit right now about appeasement until we can really get into, maybe potential new negotiations of the USMCA in a year's time.
Okay. So what are your predictions then, Nick, about what's going to happen 30 days from now? Where are we going to be in 30 days, do you think?
I wouldn't be
back to where we were?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we go back to where we were. But that being said, I think the full threat of blanket tariffs right now are probably done.
Okay.
I would suggest now, the administration of the states knows that they need to be a little bit more targeted, a little bit more strategic, but at the same time, these are not rational actors we're dealing with. So it's anyone's guess. Okay. But, we'll see the Canadian government continue to double down on the border measures that they're talking about, on the task force. Minister McGuinty was on the news last night, reinforcing the professionalism of the RCMP, just getting that message in front of the administration and in front of, American businesses to also put some pressure from within. This is really going to be a comms game from here on out.
Okay. Where do you think things stand in 30 days from now?
Yeah, I think
Alex,
we're
what do
probably
you
going to
think?
do this. I think we're probably going to do this one more time. I kind of see there being maybe 3 stages to this. These are sort of these 25% tariff threats are really designed to be coercive, to try to get as much out of Canada and Mexico in the short term as possible. So we've seen round 1. We'll do round 2. Then we know from the Lutnick confirmation hearings that there are long-term tariffs coming in April. That's probably going to be more rules-based and have some opportunities for companies and industries to be exempt. And then that'll lead us into the actual renegotiation in a year. But that's sort of where I see the trade dispute mapping out over the next year. But of course, it might be about as accurate as Wyerton Willie.
All right. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about some of the personalities that are involved here. First of all, let's think about Prime Minister Trudeau, who has one foot out the door. I thought he gave a pretty good speech on Saturday night. I waited long enough to hear it, but it was a pretty good speech. there were some interesting tidbits in there during the news conference, like he hadn't spoken with Trump since Inauguration Day. But then he made he had to make these 2 phone calls yesterday. I had a phone call in the morning and a phone call in the afternoon. By late in the afternoon, late in the day, there's this 30-day reprieve. How does Trudeau look coming out the other end of this, Nick, in your opinion?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk over the Trudeau years of his inability to communicate policy effectively. And I think to an extent that's true. But one reason that he's had the success to date that he has, and that he was able to, win successive governments, is that he can wrap himself in the flag when he needs to, and he can rally Canadians. Yeah. And when you're faced with such an existential threat, there's really not anyone in Canadian politics right now that I would want out there other than him. He knows how to pull at the emotions, and he knows how to, get everyone around the same message. And to that point, when you're on the phone having that negotiation with President Trump, I think he knows what's at stake. He knows the severity of it, and he also knows what to say and what the president wants to hear at any given time, because he's had the experience of negotiating before. I think this really turns his leaving into a moment of maybe we had something in Prime Minister Trudeau that we forgot about over the last 2 years.
Okay, I'll let Alex jump in on that, but it's going to have to wait until after our break. I'm Rob Snow. It's our Newsday panel. Trump, tariffs, the 30-day delay, where things go from here, all the ins and outs of this story. We'll talk about it with our panelists today. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Back with our Newsday panelists today, Nick McRoberts, Vice President at Winston Wilmot, and Alex Creston, who is Vice President at Crestview Strategy in Toronto today. On Mr. Trudeau's performance over the last few days, through all of this, really. How does Mr. Trudeau come out the other side looking after all of this? Alex, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that this is a wash for Prime Minister Trudeau at best. I think this looks like a lucky dodge for him. He's a Prime Minister who is in a lame duck period of his term, and was able to. It's really a shame that we have to sort of be brought kicking and screaming to do the things that we should be doing as a nation anyways. We've had a fentanyl crisis in this country for years. We see it on our streets, but somehow we don't address it seriously or put someone in charge of addressing it until we're sort of forced to. Same with guarding the border and patrolling the border. It's time that this country act like a real country, and unfortunately, this Prime Minister has never done that, and the Canadian people have seen him continue along that path in the past few weeks.
Okay, so let's talk about his main political opponent, Pierre Poilievre, who kind of has 2 jobs here. He has to hold the government to account for any shortcomings he sees in the government's approach, offer an alternative to the government, but he also has to confront the very real threat that Trump's tariffs could do to the Canadian economy. How did he do, Alex, in your opinion?
I think he did a good job of walking a pretty fine line when it comes to when you're the leader of the opposition and we're in a national crisis. You have to walk a fine line of holding the government to account without undermining the national interest. And I think he did a good job of that. People kind of said, well, he's sitting back. He's not really getting involved. I think that was responsible. But then he has come forward with a suggested plan that was reasonable and again was not sort of overtly antagonistic or getting in the middle of a national crisis that was ongoing. And really, I think the strongest things that he's presented are the sort of plans for finding other markets for our industry, and making sure that we're not as beholden to the single
and
market.
And the interprovincial trade barriers, which is a longstanding issue. And I wish everyone luck with that. Like to see where we are in 30 days on that. It's not just trade barriers. It's like the myriad of regulations among all the provinces. But on the job that Polyev has done, kind of walking this tightrope here, Nick, how did he do in your opinion?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think that is a fine line to tread, and he has done well at kind of stepping back a little bit and letting the government govern. I do think, to an extent, the Conservatives now, while maybe ahead in the polls, are a bit on the back foot in terms of messaging, right? They've had the rug kind of pulled out of them on the carbon tax and on border security. And I do think, though, it means that we're getting to a better place on having, substantial conversations about how rather than why, which is good for the country. But I think you're seeing the leader of the opposition now taking some time to rethink their differentiating message, right? If they're calling for the carbon tax to be removed, but the carbon tax is going to be removed under a new leader, if they're calling for border security, but we're spending $1.5 billion on border security, then, what is the messaging now? And I think what you're seeing is them kind of take their time to figure out what Canadians, now need to look for.
Okay, when we come back, we'll talk about, what this means for domestic politics, Parliament, the end of prorogation, the polls, which have been narrowing. What could we see in the polls in the days, the weeks ahead? Very interesting polling these days. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
It's our Newsday panel. Our panelists today are Alex Creston and Nick McRoberts. Let's talk about prorogation. Conservatives are all over social media saying recall Parliament. You have to recall Parliament. We have to debate this. It's unconscionable that the Parliament is prorogued until March 24th. What is your opinion on the need to recall Parliament and prorogation? How likely is that to happen, Nick McRoberts?
I don't think it's very likely. I think the government has made it clear that that's not going to happen. It's a bit of the line from the Liberal government has been so far that the prorogation was necessary because there are too many kind of political games being played in the House. And to one extent, I think that's true. And if we went back, it would just kind of be this political circus. But on the other hand, okay. I also kind of think that the opposition party should put their money where their mouth is. And if we go into Parliament, I would say that, the government needs to be run right now, and we should not be hit into a snap election in the middle of a 30-day tariff threat that still needs to be, figured out over the next month.
Okay. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, look, the House has been prorogued so that the Liberal Party can determine their next leader, and that's the only reason why it's been prorogued. The democracy is on hold until that's been done. And when it comes to bringing back the House, I think most Canadians would rather see us quickly get to an election and get past this sort of interim period. But I think, Rob, you've heard me on your show more than a few times. I always take the over on election timing, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised if whoever becomes the next Liberal leader tries to squeeze as much time as possible out of this term and finds a reason to not.
But you don't think the
go
House
to
is
the
coming
election.
back? You don't see the House coming back before
The
March
House isn't
24th?
coming back. No.
House is not coming back. Okay. So, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the polls that they've narrowed after the Trudeau resignation, that maybe Trudeau was good for a 5-point bounce for the Liberals in the polls. But look, we have this 30-day reprieve now, which surely beats the alternative. There's a lot of rallying around the flag going on, kind of like a renewed patriotism happening in the country. And I just wonder if that maybe helps the Liberals even a little bit more. What do you think, Nick?
The Main Street poll today in Ontario seemed to show that bounce a little bit.
More than a little bit.
More than a little bit, indeed. But
Like
I will put my partisanship to the side a little bit here and say that the most likely outcome in Canadian politics always tends to be the most boring. And to that end, a comeback of the sorts that we're talking about, I think, are, wishful thinking at most. Maybe we have a conversation around whether or not the Conservatives win a minority or a very slim minority. But we need substantial poll changes here to have a shot.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. The last maybe 45 seconds to you on that one, on polling and what you expect to see in polling, Alex.
Yeah, sometimes the absence of a leader can allow Canadians to project whatever sort of hopes and dreams they have onto a party, and we see that all the time. That in an interim period, interim leaders always poll really well, but they're not even seeking the big job. This is something that we see a lot during leadership races. There might be a bump for the winner right after the race, but then they're still saddled with the burden of a decade of a legacy that Canadians were not happy with.
Okay, great discussion. We'll see where things stand next week, next month, a few months from now. Great to hear from you again, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob.
Nick McRoberts is Vice President Winston Wilmot in Ottawa today. Alex Creston from Crestview Strategy, Vice President there in Toronto. I'm Rob Snow. Talkback is coming up. We're going to talk about this 30-day reprieve with your help at 1-833-668-2577. No tariffs. No tariffs yet. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today, the 30-day delay. The 30-day pause, the 30-day reprieve, whatever you want to call it. What do you make of it? What do you make of it all? What was that all about? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. I'd love to hear from you today, especially given where we were this time yesterday. I mean, let's face it. For the last several weeks, Canada has had this threat hanging over it. Do this, do that, do the other thing, do something brand new altogether that we haven't mentioned before, or you're going to get hit with an across-the-board 25% tariff on all your exports. And then yesterday afternoon sometime, after Prime Minister Trudeau spoke with President Trump for the second time and promised to do all kinds of things dealing with the border, this threat has now been taken off the table, at least temporarily, for at least the next 30 days. And most, not all, but most of what Donald Trump is saying led to this breakthrough has already been announced by the Trudeau government. In fact, it was announced many weeks ago, late last year sometime, I believe. So what do you think about everything that's happened in just the last 24 hours? Think about what we were talking about this time yesterday. Tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. What's that going to do to our economy? Look at the Canadian dollar. Think about how many people could lose their jobs, all of this stuff. Counter tariffs. Let's match them dollar for dollar. Let's make sure they feel the pain. Some of you suggested we turn off the taps and turn off the lights. Don't ship any oil and gas to America. Don't export any electricity to the United States. Let's see how Americans feel in the middle of February. The sight of provincial premiers from one end of the country promising to remove all the American liquor from the government-owned liquor stores. And some of you called me and said, I'm not going to buy any American products. I'm not going to be traveling to the United States anytime soon. But now, just one day later, I think most people are breathing a sigh of relief. I am, for sure. We have 30 days. That's kind of where things are right now. It's in 24 hours, and it's like night and day. So we have a lot of questions for you today, but we can get to those later. I'd rather get to some calls right now. We have 2 lines available. Make one of them yours. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Fredericton, New Brunswick. Eric is there. Hi, Eric. You're on the air.
Hi. How's it going?
Hi, Eric. Oh, it goes, sir. I'm actually battling a bit of a cold right now. Hope it doesn't come through on the radio. There's something going around, but
cold all over.
Yeah. So what do you think about the 30-day delay?
I'm happy that that's going on, but I'm bothered by everything going on because I feel that Canadians are finally feeling patriotic after 9 years of what's been going on. And my biggest thing is, when the Freedom Convoy happened, where was the patriotism then? We were just we were treated like a fringe minority, and a big part of Canada just turned their backs on us as well. So my problem is, why are we so eager to retaliate and pick a fight with our biggest neighbor, with the biggest economic superpower we've ever witnessed? But because our leaders tell us, oh, we need to be Canadian, we need to unite, and we need to fight back, that's the first thing that all these wagon jumpers are doing is just, oh, yeah, I'm Canadian, so I'm going to do what my leaders say. But where was the patriotism before?
Okay. So you feel like a lot of this patriotism is what, a bunch of Johnny-come-latelys kind of thing?
Yeah, like the patriotism should have never left. But I can't blame most Canadians not feeling Canadian anymore with this prime minister that we have.
Right. You know? Okay. So where do you think we're going to be in 30 days' time? I mean, it's only 30 days.
Personally, I do think that the tariffs will kick in after 30 days. But I also think that Trump is just using this just as a, like someone said, a negotiation tool. He's trying to show the world that he's trying to put Americans first. And he's trying to lead an example that every leader should put their own country first. So all this trying to go back and forth and trying to fight, there's no need for it. Our leaders should be putting us first, and tariffs is not going to do that for Canadians. Counter tariffs,
all right.
I mean.
All right, Eric, thank you for your call. Off and running here. Jim in Halifax, you're up next, Jim. Thanks for calling, Jim. You're on the air.
Rob, I'm exhausted like everybody else.
But, yeah, it can be exhausting. Yeah.
Anyway, I have a few points. I'm just going to try to make one, I guess.
All right.
And this is going to be, I'm thinking that this may start your show off a wee bit, maybe second days here, with a bit of positive news. Talked with my niece yesterday, who's at med school at Dow.
Okay.
And she said they've already started committees to get WHO funding for research because, U.S. pulled out of the WHO. And so there's, in behind the scenes, there's people working at, and I mean, this is something Canada could do in spades, right? Because, now we've got Kennedy basically streamlined through to be the minister or whatever the heck best.
Yeah. Human Health Services in the United States. Yeah.
On pharmaceuticals. So there's huge opportunity, but add to that, Rob, the fact that the U.S. dollar is so high and you can get so much more done in Canada cheaper. Plus, the American brand is in the toilet internationally, right?
Oh, you think so? Okay. All right.
Oh, there's no question about it. All countries are saying when Trump has said that he's going to plunder us. He's going to come and take all of our wealth. That doesn't go over well with.
Well, use economic force is what he. Those were his exact words, right? Yeah.
at the end of the day, his jokes aren't funny. It prompted me to the first letter I've ever written to an MP requesting that U.S. ambassador be called to the PMO's office and explain what the hell's going on. And if he can't explain it, throw him the hell out of the country.
Oh, really?
This is
Okay.
not funny.
Okay.
This is not
right.
This is not funny. Trump is doing exactly what Hirohito did in Japan. We need oil. We need rubber. We need wood. We need minerals. They went to China, and I call it plundering, and it's just absolutely not funny.
Okay. So let me ask you this: what do you think is going to happen? And let me ask you, what do you think is going to happen 30 days from now? You think we're right back to this?
I think 30 days from now it's going to be status quo.
Status quo. Okay.
There's an awful lot of Americans that know they are screwed if these tariffs go on. Like they're done because
really? Okay.
You get Chuck Greeley from he was basically half begging Trump not to let Canada put the ban on potash because they can't grow crops without it.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
They can't grow crops without it, and all the other things too. So I think it's just a bunch of bluster. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's funny. But my positive point is, I think there's real opportunity.
You think there's opportunity for Canada in it all? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jim. Gotta go. That's our time for the opening segment. But there's lots of time left to take many more calls. Again, 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called us before, just mention that to our call screener, and we'll make your call a priority. It's Talkback. On Tuesday, this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We are talking today about the 30-day delay in Trump's tariffs on Canada. What do you think happened? What do you think is going to happen 30 days from now? If you have anything else to add to the conversation, feel free to do so. 1-833-668-2577 to Bernie in Mississauga. Hi, Bernie. You're up next. Bernie.
Hi, Rob. Listen, Rob, I'll just say, go back to the 18th century. The American had a doctrine called the takeover of North America through their form of government with a capitalist system and a far right-wing religious group. Switch forward to today, you got Donald Trump. He's surrounded by extraordinary capitalists, and he has a far right religious group, the evangelists egging him on. And so I just say that we shouldn't be surprised what's happening. It was bound to happen.
Okay.
The Americans come to a premises in their country where on the brink. If they don't expand into Canada, they can't go forward in the world because China is the emerging world power as far as economics and that goes. So I don't think anybody should be too surprised by what's happening.
Okay, what do you think is going to happen after this 30 days expires, Bernie?
Well, after the 30 days, I hope Canada keeps its backbone and is tough and strong because we're going to have to be. This man is not finished. And like I said, with their doctrine from the 18th century, their idea is to expand through the whole continent. And,
manifest destiny. Manifest destiny. You're
and everything another country has to offer. So they got to be vigilant and on their guard.
Okay. All right. Manifest Destiny, it's called, Bernie. Thank you for your call today. Steve is in Kitchener, Ontario. Hello, Steve. You're on the air, Steve.
Hey, Rob. How's it going, man?
I'm fine. Thank you. Go ahead.
Right on. I just wanted to call. I heard that first caller there, that genius there, call in. The first caller talking about how he's got the market cornered on patriotism there. Him and his 10% science denial, people who took over Ottawa there because, somebody on Facebook told them it was a good idea or whatever. They have their brainworms in their head like the RFK Jr., right? And, I'm a trucker and 90% of us are vaccinated and thought they were a bunch of numpties. And this guy's talking about he's got the market cornered on patriotism all of a sudden. And he's talking how Donald Trump is so great and he's looking out for the American people. Look up the definition of fascism and the 14 different signs of fascism. Donald Trump is a civilly liable rapist. He's an insurrectionist. He's a traitor. And anybody who thinks any differently should go down to Florida with the rest of the cousin lovers, if you know what I'm saying.
All right. There's no need to be nasty. Okay, and I don't want to get into some debate about the pros and cons of the Freedom Convoy. We've got bigger issues right now than a protest that took place years ago. What I want to get at is, what is all this about, and what do you think we've got this 30-day window here. What do you think is going to happen in 30 days? Let's kind of stay focused on the topic. What do you think is going to happen 30 days from now?
I think he's got a whole bunch of right-wing awful people telling him what to do, and he's got nobody holding him accountable. They talk about, George Soros and the deep state, and I'm draining the swamp. Look at the people he's got around him. He's got over $1 trillion worth of billionaires telling him what to do. And Elon Musk is running the friggin' world. He's gained $200 billion since Trump won that election.
Okay.
What I think is going to happen, I think he's going to do the same thing, because he thinks he'll be the king if he takes over Canada, and all of his little cult there will love him and revere him so much more, and he'll get his face on Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
I know.
Okay. So you think we're not out of the woods yet? That this is still a threat for Canada? This is still a threat for Canada.
One quick thing is Putin.
Yeah.
He's been talking to his buddy Putin. What has his buddy Putin been doing in Ukraine? The same thing he's thinking about doing in Canada.
Okay. All right, Steve. You're not the first to suggest that. Okay, Steve. Thank you. More of your calls just ahead. We are off and running today. The 30-day delay, the 30-day pause, the 30-day reprieve from the Trump tariffs. That's our topic. It can go off in any number of directions. I'll try to reel you in if it gets a little too freewheeling, but I want to hear opinions from all over the place on all sides. 1-833-668-2577. Have your say. I'll try to navigate us through the next hour and a half or so. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're kicking around the 30-day delay in Trump's tariffs for Canada. Let's go to Kathy in Calgary. Hi, Kathy. You're up next. Go ahead. What do you think is going on here? Hi.
Hi, Rob. Nice to talk with you. I'm a first-time caller.
Nice to hear from you, Kathy. Thank you for calling.
I guess my main concern is I truly believe that Donald Trump is a bully, a big bully. He looks for a sort of a crack in the foundation, signs of weakness, and then he makes his move to attack. My concern is in a month's time, our government is going to be in peril. Trudeau's going to be gone. We've got Poilievre, who wants to call a very quick election. And I think that is where Trump is going to take advantage of. And I think people need to start looking at that and have a concern surrounding, I think, actually what Poilievre is going to be trying to do to get a snap election.
Okay. Well, it's not just Poilievre who wants a snap election. All the opposition parties want to defeat the government, of course, right?
That is correct. But is now the right time to dismantle a guy? I am not a liberal voter at all, but is now the time to show the weakness to the world so that Trump can come in and cause even more harm than what he's already trying to do?
Yeah, and I suppose a counter argument would be, is now the time to have our parliament prorogued? Is now the time for the Liberal Party to be having a leadership race in Ontario?
Correct.
They're having an election right now, of course. Doug Ford is on the election campaign right now, so none of this 100%. Is great timing, is it?
No, it's not. And I actually, if I would answer the question directly about the tariffs, I don't think the tariffs are going to come in. I believe that he just uses as a tool. To bully, to push around. I just don't believe that they will. I thought that they were going to be canceled yesterday, and they were. It's just kind of his MO. It's what he's always done.
He uses them for leverage.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
And he looks for weakness, and Canada has a weakness right now. So.
All right. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks very much.
Yep. Let's go to Colin in Calgary. Hi there, Colin.
Oh, hi there. Yeah.
Hi, what's your take?
Well, my take is I think the tariffs won't come in, and I guess for two reasons. The first reason is I think it gives, as time went on during this whole tariff, I call it a kind of a brinksmanship. I think the more Americans found out about it, the more they realized that this was not a good idea. And I guess I'd quote, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, said, why are we doing this? And Chuck Schumer said, I didn't think Trump would screw up so quickly. There was this awakening, I think, and obviously more on the Democratic side, that this is not a good thing for the United States. And one of the more curious, the second point I'd like to make is kind of a curious comment by Chuck Grassley, Iowa senator, and he wanted an exemption for potash. And with I guess with potash,
you're the second person to bring that up, actually.
Yeah, the thing is with that is if American farms, if you played it out from his perspective, I mean, he didn't want it to be more expensive, obviously, because farmers, it's tough to make a living generally. But if they don't have access to potash, of which Canada is the primary supplier for the United States, and where else are you going to get it? Belarus and Russia.
Yeah.
If you don't have access to it over a long period of time, and this is just theoretical, of course, Canada would never block it, but your farms eventually can't function. And eventually, I'd say after 10 years, you're probably looking at, well, no livestock, no dairy, no meat. Meat's a luxury item. And you're into food insecurity in the United States. And that is an unbelievable thing, but that's what would happen. There'd be famine and rationing. That's with 10 years of no potash. So when they say we don't need anything from Canada, well, you can make America great again, but can you make your own potash? I don't think so.
Okay. So where do you think we are in 30 days from now?
30 days, I think they're just going to come to, another one of these. Well, we've looked at it, and we're going to sit down with Canada and Mexico and perhaps, look at things like dairy or perhaps, financial services, banking, whatever. There's going to be negotiations, I think, like was said before.
All right.
There's always a win needed, right, on the other side. So who knows what that'll be. But my last point, and I'm really sad to make this point, but I'd say if Canada doesn't get its act together and start to build out its infrastructure to secure our own independence from, an overly
10 seconds.
Oversized neighbor, we almost don't deserve to survive because we've got to do this.
Okay, good place to end.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We are talking today about the 30-day delay on the Trump tariff threat for Canada. Why do you think that happened? Where do you think we'll be 30 days from now? What do you think will be happening then? Paul is in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Paul. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think Trump just ran a test of the intellect of the politicians in Canada. Had everybody listened to Danielle Smith, addressed the initial irritant, and worked on it diplomatically rather than making ridiculous threats like cutting power off, like cutting oil and gas off, energy off, all these kinds of threats that are totally hollow. I don't think we'd have been in this position at all. And I think everything would have been settled well before yesterday. That's my view. Trump did a stupidity test on the politicians in Canada, and there's one in the whole country that has common sense that made the right approach. That's my view.
Okay. And I would put that to the rest of our listeners. Do you give credit to someone like the Alberta Premier, Danielle Smith? She wasn't calling for a fentanyl czar. She was calling for a border czar. Now we're going to have something like a border czar, fentanyl czar, whatever. Be curious to see who that person is. Her government did come up with its own border security plan. We covered that news event the day it launched. And look, through all of this, people in other parts of the country were basically calling her a sellout and a traitor. Can you say that now? Let's go to Mike. He's in Milton. Mike, you're on the air. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree with the last caller. He's pretty well hit the nail on the head.
Really? Okay.
The issue we have with a lot of people I don't even hear it mentioned on the radio. Trump mentioned about fixing the border. Talked to Trudeau about fixing the border. Trudeau made an announcement about spending $1.3 billion on the border. Nobody mentioned about that spending is in the fine print. It's spent over 6 years.
Well, yes, I have mentioned that.
Another thing
sir.
that Ms. Trump mentioned, not to use Chinese drones. Mr. Trudeau ordered Chinese drones to patrol the border, which he cannot use.
Okay.
This is some of the issues that not even being mentioned on the media. People need to people need to look into it, dig into it. And so Trump put tariffs on. And guess what? He delayed the tariffs for another month. So that brings you to the 4th or 5th of March.
March 5th,
stepping down the 10th of March. So you could see the picture being
9th
painted.
of March, 9th of
You
March,
could see the picture being painted. What's happening is Trudeau is running out his time, and Trump knows that. And then he'll be dealing with another person. But you remember what President Trump did before he became president? He used to be the art of dealing with people. He basically studies people and know what they're like, and he basically gets to the basics of what's actually going on. And he's not going to screw over Canada. The Americans and Canadians are basically joined at the hip.
Okay.
So you can basically look at the bigger picture that's coming. And when March comes in, you're going to see.
Oh, I think we lost you there. Mike. Gonna have to move along. Michael in Cape Breton, you're up next. Michael, you're on the air.
Yeah, yesterday, the reason Trump backed off and give us another month, he had one look at the stock market and he got the scats. One thing that scared the dead of is losing money. And when he took one look at that stock market down in the States, down in New York, and when those two Republicans spoke up, said, you better get a handle on her, she's wheeling out of control, they put an end to her. He gave us a month reprieve. You had two previous callers just there praising Daniel Smith. God love ignorance. When ignorance is bliss, it's folly to be wise. If she's a smart woman by going down there and licking boots, along with Wayne Gretzky or anybody else that went down there licking boots.
Was it wrong for Mr. Trudeau to go there? Was it wrong for Mr. LeBlanc to go there? Was it wrong for Melanie Joly to go there? Was it wrong for David McGuinty to go there? It's not like Daniel Smith was the only one who visited the United States and made the round.
Down there now, she's run by the mafia in the States. It's like the fall of Babylon down there, and it's out of control. And remember I quoted Rob? I told you, I said, whenever stupid people meet in the crowd, look out for danger. And that's what you're dealing with right now.
Okay, so let me ask you, Michael, before you leave. Now, where do you think things are going to be in 30 days? Do you think we'll be right back in the soup, so to speak?
Certainly we will, because economic control leads to political control. Will they please listen and read about the prophet Tommy Douglas? He predicted it in the early 60s. What was going to happen, what's happening right now.
Okay. Got to go. Thank you. We'll stop here and be right back. We'll take some more calls from Atlantic Canada, from Keith and Rick, and we'll take your call as well. 1-833-668-2577. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Why the 30-day delay in Trump's tariffs on Canada? Where do you think we'll be in 30 days from now? Keith in Nova Scotia up next. Thanks for waiting, Keith. What's your opinion on the topic today?
Yeah. Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm okay. Thank you.
Just noticed that China has hit back against the United States.
Yes.
You knew that, right?
I saw that they are putting tariffs on, I think oil, it was coal and,
oil,
I saw that. Yeah.
Coal, cars. So I guess they weren't long in letting Trump know what they think about his tariffs.
Right.
So now he's possibly got to deal with China, which I can't imagine would be an easy task. I think sometimes maybe you don't have to actually give Trump anything. All you got to do is let him announce victory on television. That's good enough.
Yeah. It's so funny that you mentioned that. It's so funny that you mentioned that. I think we have some audio here that we want to play. There's this idea. Trump really likes to be seen as a winner, right? That's part of his persona. Part of his whole political pitch to Americans that under his leadership, America's going to win. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. It only matters if people think it's true. Winning. You're going to be sick of winning, right? How many times has he said? Dave, play Trump number 1 there.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more. We're going to win so much. I love you all.
Right. Winning. So yesterday he puts up this, long statement about Mr. Trudeau and securing the border. And he says, as president, it is my responsibility to ensure the safety of all Americans. And I am doing just that. In other words, we won kind of thing. That's kind of how I view this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, when you listen to what you just played, does that sound like a person that's in complete control of themselves?
I guess it sounds like a guy who wants to win.
I can just picture Mussolini at the podium pounding his fist and folding his arms across his chest. I think Donald is probably being told by some of the people in his cabinet, and they're kind of like, hey, they're pushing his buttons a little bit. And being the person that he is, I think he's an insecure person.
Okay.
I think his ego is totally eggshell. And I think that he is dangling a noose over Canada, Mexico. Now he's got an even bigger one to dangle over China. That's going to be interesting. So I think what he's trying to do is he's kind of testing the waters,
right?
To see, exactly how stupid or how easily people are manipulated in the Canadian government. And we'll see after 30 days what happens. But within 30 days, there could be a lot of changes. Maybe the people in the United States, they're not going to really benefit from what he's doing. It's going to hurt them. And honestly, Rob, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about the people in North America, period. Donald cares about one thing. That's Donald. Look at me when I walk in the room. Everybody stand up and just gaze upon my greatness. And with the kind of person that he is, with that kind of a narcissistic, egotistical personality, this is not unexpected for him to try something like this. But
you think we're still in trouble? We're still in trouble in this country.
Oh, I don't know, Rob. I'm not a geopolitical person.
Okay.
I mean, I watch the news sometimes, but I mean, it's certainly not very good to have an economy and a military like the United States has right next door with a guy like him in the bully pulpit.
Okay. I'm going to go. Thank you. Rick in Dartmouth. Thank you for calling, Rick. You're up next. Go ahead, Rick. What do you think about everything that's going on?
I disagree more with my fellow Nova Scotian. He doesn't watch the news much. It's obvious to me. But anyway, we have a problem here in the Halifax area, and it's the anti-Ian Lee problem. In other words, the local talk show host, which is a Rogers station, and I've listened to for many years and been on it 1,000 times, has taken the position that Trump is an idiot. And it's just the opposite of what Ian Lee said today on your show. So I called him, and I don't get through very much anymore. I'm kind of selected out. And I said, what happened? You used to be, the great Ian Lee used to be number one on the station in terms of his, analysis based on the facts and all of that. Anyway, they had no excuse for it, in my view. But I'd like to see your show, the second hour of the talk show, be on the radio here. It's just kind of pathetic. We just end up getting news on.
Well, I don't make that call. That's out of mine, and I'm not going to comment on what they're airing on other radio shows. Everybody does their own thing and has their own opinions. It's part of the dialogue. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Good stuff having Ian on.
I guess what I want to get at. I want to kind of circle back. Okay, we're given this reprieve yesterday. Where do you think we are 30 days from now?
Well, remember when I called? I don't expect you to remember, but I called when the first Reuters thing came out, and then it was debunked by the White House itself, and then, of course, it ended up coming to be true. So I still think the same thing. I think it's just testing the waters. He's just making
testing the waters. Okay,
making us dance, or making our politicians dance. And the idea of the retaliatory tariffs is insane if you want to help Canada. It's just insane. That's what I'm worried about. Not what the Americans are going to have to pay extra, but we will have to pay extra to support our lunatic government. Thanks.
Okay, all right, Rick. Thank you. We'll stop here. Yes, we will. And if you're on hold right now, you'll get on the air before the top of the hour. And then there's a second hour of Talkback just ahead right after the news. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about the 30-day delay in Trump's tariffs on Canada. What happened? What do you think is going to happen in 30 days' time? George, up next in Calgary. Hello, George. You're on the air. What's your opinion?
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just quickly, because I know I don't have much time here. It's not my area of research, but I agree with Dr. Lee on a lot of things, but I don't like his big economy, so we have to take a bended knee attitude.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and that's different opinions, right?
Sure. Yep.
But the problem is we have protected, yes, we have some protected industries and so on, but nobody talks about all the protected industries. Definitely the U.S. agricultural. They have government procurements, which is part of the Buy American Act. So Canadians can't go into that. They have the Jones Act, which is part of where we can't be involved with any of along those sort of things, right?
Okay.
But the problem is more so every time Canada gets into an agreement with or does these deals with the U.S., we come out on the losing end. And I understand why, because we're the smaller partner on this, and which I don't think Dr. Lee talks about. Like just the example with that, whatever you want to call it, the cost FTA, I will call it, right? In basic from 88 to 94, Canada lost 334,000 jobs, and that was mostly in manufacturing jobs, right? So it's just, and then just on the income inequality, we've dropped by about 2% since the 1990s. Our agricultural impact, our hog farmers, dropped by 66%. We lost about 2,400 jobs on this. So I don't, like I said, it's not my area of research, but the problem is but from the 45 to 70 was called the Great Expansion, where just middle class got better, wealthier and stuff. Since then, and I won't get into politics, Reagan and stuff like that, became the Great Expansion, the Great Compression, which was middle class got. Then we became the expansion, which is, and this is what's happening. And Trump, the whole thing is he always wants penny on the dollars, and you've seen it with all the casinos and stuff, even though they went bankrupt and stuff. What he did with subcontracts, he does this with the different countries. So This is the problem. This is what we have to look at. And this is where I sort of had a bit of a disagreement with Dr. Lee on those aspects.
Fair enough.
So,
and, we've talked about it, and I've asked the callers over there, has free trade been good for Canada or bad for Canada? And even the Bank of Canada just recently even published a policy paper on this. And I would just say, in the Bank of Canada's opinion, there's no doubt that free trade has been good for Canada. It says 1 in 6 jobs are now tied to exports to other countries. And it says that incomes in Canada are 15 to 40% higher because of free trade, and that Canadians benefit because they get a greater selection of merchandise, and they get that merchandise at lower prices. It also says that the largest increase in global wealth coincided with the worldwide reduction in trade barriers, which resulted in an increase in global trade, and that protectionism makes everyone worse off. But as we're seeing, protectionism is very popular these days politically. Thank you. We have an entire hour ahead. Right after the latest breaking news, it will be hour number 2 of Talkback. Welcome your calls and your opinions on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
We've been talking about the 30-day delay announced yesterday for the Trump tariffs to be imposed on Canada. What do you think happened? What do you think is going to happen 30 days from now? Very busy first hour. Welcome to hour number 2. We welcome your phone calls at 1-833-668-2577. To Joe in Kitchener up next. Joe, thanks for waiting. You're on the air. Go ahead, Joe.
Rob, I busted out my crystal ball, and
Okay.
I found it was dusty and it was smudgy.
All right.
In need of some clarity. But
Yeah.
you know what? Let's take a look at what we know about the man. He is purely transactional. And my wife and I, the other night, we watched The Apprentice, which was sort of a biopic on Trump. And, taking the artistic impression of the character aside, even though he happens to be the most powerful man in the free world right now, if you look at what that tells you about the man, then it tells you a whole lot about what's happening right now. He's all about the win. And the whole thing about The Apprentice, if you watch it, and it gives you some insight of what he's all about, he's about the win. And so when we try to appease the man, give him a win, for God's sake.
Give him a win. Well, he loves to win.
Give him a win. More of the border stuff, okay? And how does that hurt us in the long run? If we buy like 5 more Blackhawks and we put more people on the border, maybe as an accidental result, we'll stop some of the ghost guns that are coming across the border from the other side.
Sure.
Maybe we'll cut down on illegal immigrant trafficking across the border on both sides of the ledger.
Yeah.
It can only help us. And then, what?
And we're not slapping tariffs on $155 billion worth of imports into this country with a 69-cent dollar already.
Rob, I'm having kittens right now because my family and I are directly tied to the auto industry, and it's 100% U.S. customers. So you can imagine, short of like cutting off my nose to spite my face, I'd piss on a spark plug if I thought it would do me any good right now. But let's look at what we have to work with. And we have a transactional person, and he needs a win. And he keeps talking about it in the news clips. A win is a win.
He loves to win. Let's play, David, thank you, Joe. Let's play Trump number 2. Trump number 2. He loves to win.
We must
Trump
start
number 2.
totally winning and winning and winning again. Remember when I used to say, we're going to win so much? We're going to win that the people of Missouri are going to go to your governor and they're going to say, Governor, please go see the president. We can't stand winning so much. Remember, I used to say that, right? I used to say it, and that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And then the governor's going to come to that beautiful historic Oval Office. He's going to say to me, Mr. President, the people of Missouri cannot stand all this winning. They don't want to win so much. They love the old way, where they had lousy job numbers, lousy economic numbers, lousy. They loved it. Please, Mr. President, please not. And I'll say, Governor, I don't care what they say in Missouri. We're going to keep winning and winning and winning and winning. Remember?
Yeah, so I guess when it comes to this border stuff, he can now go and say, well, we have a win. We have a win. Look what I made Mr. Trudeau do. I demanded they do this, and now look, they're doing this. Even though this announcement about this $1.3 billion border plan didn't just materialize yesterday. Team Trudeau, if anybody's been paying attention to Canadian politics, they've been out promoting the heck out of that to anyone who will listen. Even though it's $1.3 billion over 6 years, this government might not last 6 weeks or 6 months, let alone 6 years. And $1.3 billion is a made-up number. I hate to break it to you. There's no funding for most of the vast majority of that because Parliament is prorogued. The government can't spend any money unless Parliament says, government, you can spend money. That's called supply. There might be $85 million or so available to spend on border security. The rest of this money, $1.3 billion, fairy tale, totally fairy tale. Maybe we should mention that. Might not seem like such a win. But Donald Trump, to Joe's point, he likes us. We're winning. We're winning. And with everyone else, you lose. And all I had to do to get the win was to threaten to crush the Canadian economy with tariffs.
We have to win more.
1-833-668-2577. It's hour number 2 of Talkback. Your calls are most welcome. We will stop here and be right back with more. If you've never called before, we'd love to hear from first-time callers. There's any number of angles we could explore this one. Such as, what do you think is going to happen in 30 days? I mean, is this the end of it? Is this the end of it? Or will we be going through this national drama again 30 days from now, and it'll start all over again? And we'll have premiers back on CNN and Fox News and threatening to pull liquor from liquor stores and counter tariffs and everything else. Have your say on Talkback on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The topic of the day, the 30-day delay in Trump's tariffs on Canada. 30 days grace. Why do you think that happened? Where do you think we're going to be 30 days from now? 1-833-668-2577. Andrew up next in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Andrew. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. Great show.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Thank you.
So 30 days from now, here's my prediction. I'm expecting that Trump will celebrate his win. He's going to probably have some sort of wording out there that he'll publicly put out about how he had this fantastic control over the Canadian government, and he's got a really big stick. And he'll probably just push that back. He'll probably say something along the lines of, it's great. The government's working with us. Canada's working with us. We're going to see how quickly they can implement things, and then we'll reassess things another 6 months down the road. And he's just going to keep riding that as far as he can until we push back or we become the 51st state. I don't know, H.
Okay. That there are kind of short-term goals and long-term goals. Would you say that for Mr. Trump on this whole thing? Yeah,
I think he's got wheels turning. I think he got what he wanted. He saw the reactionary efforts of the Canadian government. He saw what they did when they kicked the anthill before he even took office, and because of that, he's now got a whole lot of data on how we react. And of course, we're his closest neighbors, Canada and Mexico, so he can take all that, and this is what his closest neighbors do. Now what happens when he wants another country to fall in line with what the U.S. wants? economically speaking. So he's got a big stick now. He knows he can use it.
All right. Thank you, Andrew, for your call.
You bet.
And thank you for the compliments. Yep. I mean, he's saying, well, I've got the Canadians to spend $1.3 billion, so I'll give them another 30 days. But he has said a lot of other things about what all of this is about. And so have some of his top people. I don't think it's wise to ignore people like his pick for Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, a billionaire from Wall Street, Cantor Fitzgerald, another guy from Queens. And I think you have to pay attention when he makes remarks like he did at his nomination hearing last week in Washington when he was asked about dairy farming in Canada and supply managed agriculture. He was being asked, Mr. Lutnick was being asked by a senator from Wisconsin what the Trump administration would do to help dairy farmers in Wisconsin who have always complained about being shut out of the Canadian market because of supply management and agriculture. And this is what Mr. Lutnick said. Just to remind everyone, this wasn't even a week ago he said this.
Our farmers, our ranchers, and our fishermen are the best in the world, and they are treated poorly. Canada, as we spoke about, treats our dairy farmers horribly. That's got to end. That's got to end. And if Canada is going to rely on America for its economic growth, how about you treat our farmers, our ranchers, and our fishermen with respect? And so I think the president and our Trump administration is going to improve the lives and is focused on improving the lives of our producers, our farmers, our ranchers, and our fishermen. These are vital. So I'm going to work hard to make sure, as an example, for your dairy farmers, they do much, much better in Canada than they've ever done before. And that is a key focus of this administration.
Howard Lutnick, nominee for Secretary of Commerce. And, you hear that. We have our sights set on other things. Canada treats our dairy farmers horribly, so it makes you wonder. Okay, what does that mean for supply management and agriculture in this country, for example? Something to keep in mind. Is that something else that comes up? Peter in Langley in British Columbia. Thank you, Peter. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Rob.
Hi.
I wanted to talk about something else, but after playing that clip, I would like to remind Lutnick that the Americans are the biggest hypocrites in the world.
Okay.
When he talks about how we don't treat the Americans badly with regards to dairy, there are rules, and I'm against them. There's like the marketing boards for the dairy, I'm against that. But he seems to forget how they treat our lumber industry.
Okay, fair enough.
Right? So,
yep.
There's enough to shout at each other, back and forth to
Obviously.
go on and on and on about it kind of thing. So, Americans are big on propaganda. Anyhow, what I really wanted to ask you about here was I read yesterday about Trudeau announcing this joint Canadian-American task force, and that set off alarm bells in my mind. And do you know if that joint task force includes having American boots in Canadian soil?
I don't know really anything about it other than what was in the statement. Canada-U.S. Joint Strike Force, it's called, Combat Organized Crime. And other than that, I really know very little about it.
Yeah, it's my biggest worry about this whole issue, the way Canada is approaching it. And my biggest fear is they're going to continue doing what they've done for the last 70 years, which is sell out our sovereignty in order to keep trade going. And, that's my biggest fear, because as the Americans creep in on our sovereignty, right, it gets easier and easier just to annex Canada, right? I mean, when like right now, they've got their agents on our ports, right? There's American agents in all of our ports. They're monitoring the trade that we do. There's other examples. I didn't write them down here, so I don't have them off the top of my head. But there's lots of examples. NORAD's another one, where we've given up our sovereignty in that respect. And that's my biggest fear. And I don't know if anyone else shares that or not. And you had a previous listener who says that Trump's a transactional guy and, all this stuff that we've been hearing, and that you need to give him a win. The problem with giving him a win is he's a bully, first and foremost. And when you give a bully your sandwich, he's going to be back the next day for the other sandwich, and it's not going to stop. The only way you stop a bully is to punch him in the nose, period.
Okay. All right. All right, Peter. Thank you. Thank you for your call, Peter. 1-833-668-2577. It's the Tuesday Talkback. Trump tariffs, Canada, 30-day pause, 30-day reprieve. Your thoughts on this latest development? It's quite a different state of affairs today than it was just 24 hours ago. We'd love to know where you think things stand and where things go from here. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Topic of the day, the 30-day delay or pause in the Trump tariff threat. Rob in Cambridge. Hi, Rob. You're on there.
Howdy. Good afternoon, Rob. You know what? I don't have any proof of it.
Okay.
But I have a suspicion that since he threatened us with tariffs that would involve with the auto industry and other stuff, I have a sneaky gut feeling that some really big American investors made a call to him and said, this is the way it's going to be. And what you're wanting isn't going to happen, and said, this is going to cost big time.
Okay.
And I have a sneaky feeling because, this has been going on. There's no such a thing as a Canadian-built car or an American-built. It's all pieced together with trade, and that's been built up for years. There's he's announced then all of a sudden we don't allow U.S. banks in. Meanwhile, we have 16 banks up here. So I kind of wonder if the push is going to be okay, what are we going to be next? So I kind of heard different reports where he's eyeing the western part of the country where the water is, like Lake, using that for Southwest down there because they're parched. But from what I was informed by, seeing it on TV, is that former Chrétien blocked that and it's barred. Nobody can use it for that.
Okay, so, I'm not familiar with any of that, of course, but there's this term in U.S. politics, the donor class, because it takes so much money to run a political campaign in the United States. You're thinking the reason, you're speculating, you say the reason that he may have hit the pause button is because he was hearing it from the donor class, the billionaires who contributed to his.
And some of his billionaire friends that have helped endorse him, and they pretty well kind of told him, hey, you know what? We put you in. We can take you out.
Okay, that's interesting. All right, hadn't heard that. Hadn't heard that yet, Bob. Thank you for your call, Rob. Sorry, from Rob in Cambridge to Bob in Cambridge. There we go. Bob in Cambridge is up next. Thank you for waiting, Bob. Go ahead.
Hi, Rob.
Hi.
How are you, sir?
Battling a bit of a cold, sir, but let's get right to it here because we're a little tight on time.
Okay. Well, I think there's going to be a little bit. Well, I told you last week one day there's going to be a little bit give and take.
Give and take, okay.
And there's still going to be a little bit of give and take, but it's not going to be anything that you lose your sleep about.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I have a question.
Yes.
Why is it that St. Pierre hasn't said a thing about this, but yet he's attacked the government about border policies, but he hasn't said a thing about Trump lately?
Well, what are you talking about, sir? He had a half-an-hour news conference just yesterday in Vancouver.
Yeah, where he attacked the border more than Trump.
Well, attack the border. He wasn't attacking the border. He was outlining this is what I would do if I was the prime minister and I was in charge of things. This is what I would do along the border. I'm sorry, sir?
Alberta got that deal for 10%. He's been kind of quiet.
I don't know how you can say. I don't know how you can say he's been kind of quiet. It's Tuesday. He had a lengthy news conference yesterday, and he had a news conference the day before yesterday. You're saying he's quiet. I don't know how you can say that. Just it's just not true. 1-833-668-2577. Back after the news on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The 30-day delay on tariffs from Trump. That's been our topic of the day. Another busy Talkback today. Let's go to Sylvan Lake. Wade is in Sylvan Lake. Hello, Wade.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Wade.
It's minus 25 and snowing here.
Oh, it's
So
about
it's
time
chilly.
because I heard you were in you were enjoying some very mild temperatures a few days ago. It's good that winter has
Well,
made a
yeah,
return.
a little bit, but I guess we're
Yeah.
in for a rough February.
Yeah,
But
well,
we're heading off to Asia here tomorrow, so it'll be nice
Okay.
and warm over there.
happy trails.
Thanks. I've heard a lot of people talk about Trump being a bully and doing what he's doing. I've had to deal with situations before in my life where people have told me, do this and this and this, and you'll get this. And for me, and I might be a bit naive on this, but for me, what it boils down to is, okay, we did this and this and this, and if Trump is a man of his word, then we're done. If he's not a man of his word, like I know a lot of politicians are, I definitely know Trudeau is not a man of his word, and I definitely know Jagmeet Singh is not a man of his word. But if he's not a man of his word, well, that's where you got to plant your other foot and stand and say, okay, we did this. Now you do whatever it is you think you got to do, and we'll do whatever it is we think we got to do.
Okay.
And that's the end of it.
Okay. I just, and thank you, Wade, for your call. I just wonder if like 30 days, is this the end of the tariff threat from Donald Trump, or is it kind of like the end of the beginning, Wade? What would you say? Oh, I guess we lost Wade. Let's listen to Trump. What has he been saying? He's been saying all kinds of things. Yesterday he settles this and issues a 30-day pause because of border security, but he has said so many things like, we don't need their stuff. This was Donald Trump 4 days ago. We don't need their stuff.
Look, Mexico and Canada have never been good to us on trade. They've treated us very unfairly on trade. And we will be able to make that up very quickly because we don't need the products that they have. We have all the oil you need. We have all the trees you need, meaning the lumber. We have more than almost anybody in those two categories. In oil, we have more than anybody, and we don't need anybody's trees. We have to free up some of the tree areas that we have. We have great lumber in this country. We have to free them up environmentally, which I can do very quickly. But we don't need what they have.
He goes on for, 30 seconds. He doesn't mention border security at all. So is he done? Is he finished? He gets his win on the border and that's it? Or is there more to come? Like 30 days from now? Auto sector, lumber, oil and gas, milk, whatever it is, all the rest of it, because he thinks we're ripping him off. Yesterday it was the banks out of nowhere. He was talking about the banks. He was wrong saying there are no American banks here, but I guess that doesn't matter. He has his own facts. That's why I ask, we've got a 30-day reprieve. Where are we in 30 days from now? Tom in Kitchener, you're on the air, Tom. Hi.
Hi, Rob. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm fine, sir. Thank you, Tom. What's your opinion here, Tom?
BRICS. BRICKS.
Oh, BRICS, the BRICS
not
countries.
the only superpower in town. They are.
Okay.
So if Trudeau was smart, he would have phoned up whatever, Russia or India or China and said, hey, we got a problem here. Can you help us with this?
Right.
And they would have done something. But I don't think he's too late now. He can still phone them up. But
do you want Canada to have closer ties with Russia and closer ties with China sir?
Yep.
Really?
Yes. Take a look. BRICS is sweeping the world. The United States will be no more in 10 years.
Right. Is that necessarily a good thing?
Well, it'll mean more equality across the globe, yes.
Oh, really? Okay, I don't quite see it that way. I don't really want to live in a world that's influenced by Russia. I don't like the way China's government runs that country. Sir, nothing against people from China. I think the government there is abhorrent. There's no respect for human rights.
Well, it could be, but the thing here is
censors the internet, no free media, jails political dissidents. I don't want to live under an administration like that. And I don't think Canada should be fostering closer ties with countries that run their affairs like that.
Well,
South Africa, Brazil, India, maybe it's a different story. India, at least a Commonwealth country, but our ties with India are pretty strained right now.
Yes.
Right.
But anyways, I'm just saying that BRICS it's another superpower in town, so we can go pull them up.
All right. Okay.
They can help us.
Yeah. There was a time when, diversification of trade was all about China. But I think you're being naive if you think China is any friend of Canada. Gary in Calgary. Gary, you're up next, Gary. Hi there.
Hello, Rob.
Hi, Gary.
Interesting discussion. Well, Trump sure knows how to play us. He saw, months before where we were at, what state we were at as a country, our weak leader as a prime minister. So here we are. In 30 days, we better have some kind of a firm plan in terms of how we're going to go forward. Maybe that means expanding, doing more trade with Europe. Our low Canadian dollar is certainly a plus to get us out into more markets in other parts of the world. But yes, we need to have some kind of a firm plan in how we're dealing with the U.S. And it's good to see our country coming together, that we're united, that we're promoting Canadian products on social media, and that we're having a good discussion about this. It's unfortunate that we're in a weak position with sort of a functioning government right now.
Yeah.
That's
I would just point out that Canada already has a free trade agreement with the European Union. It's called CETA. CETA. It's been in place since 2017, 8 years now.
Good. Maybe it's time to revise it, make some changes.
Yeah. Right. The next big thing would be because of Brexit, the UK pulling out of the European Union. We don't have a free trade agreement with the UK, and there's always been plans to negotiate one with the UK. But we haven't finalized anything on that.
Maybe the time is coming for that there's an opportunity for us to get there, and our low Canadian dollar will be a plus to do business on that part of the world.
All right. Thank you for your call, Gary. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. It's Talkback. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The 30-day delay in Trump's tariffs on Canada. Why do you think that happened? Where do you think we'll be 30 days from now? Where do things go from here? What should we be doing as a country right now? 1-833-668-2577. Jonathan, up next in Calgary. Hi, Jonathan. You're on the air. What's your opinion?
Hi, Rob. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking my call. And
you're very welcome.
My 2 cents on this one is this is just my opinion, and
sure.
And I think the 30 days period is just like a grace period of given to us if we're really sincere of our plans on what we are pledging to Mr. Trump. And if we do well, I think maybe there's a chance that he will stop, because on their side as well, the market rattles. It's also shaky.
Yes.
On those periods, and I think he understands that it's not going to benefit to them as well. And also he mentioned the 51st state. I think he's, my opinion again, he's making an offer to Canada because he sees our weakness. Although we are a big country, but he understands, I believe, that our 13 provinces is behaving as like different countries. We cannot even transact business easily to every province, and he sees that, I think, and he is kind of wait and see game of how we react as a Canadian, as a country, and I think he see how we react, and I don't know if he's happy about it or not, but the good thing to me, even though our leaders are different approach on dealing to them, one thing I see is that the Canadians are 100% united when it comes to.
Yes, I would pretty much agree with you there. Yeah.
And
but you think it's kind of a wait and see? He's taking a wait and see approach.
Yes.
For the next 30 days, a grace period, you call it. Okay, yeah, very good, very good. Okay, thank you. For your call, Jonathan, in Calgary today to Ayr, Ontario. Bill is there in Ayr. Hello, Bill.
How's Rob today?
Battling a head cold, sir, like everybody else in the country, apparently. So we're struggling through
I'm not battling any cold.
Okay.
I'll leave that to you.
Okay.
Our buddy down south of us has already said what his agenda was. He wants to make all of North America stars and stripes.
And
he's not going to be happy until he does.
You believe that's what it is?
Oh, well, he's already said it himself. He wants all of North America stars and stripes.
Okay. Well, he has said if you become the 51st state, all of these issues go away. You know, he makes this claim, you get better health care, you'll have better defense, you'll have lower taxes, and you won't have tariffs. That's what he said. He's also said, well, use economic force against Canada.
So he can turn it into stars and stripes.
Yeah.
Which he'll do exactly the same thing to Mexico. Mexico. Yeah. He's...
you think that's his end goal? Is to take us over?
He's already said it is.
You think it is, though? But he sends a lot of things, sir. Right?
Oh yeah, he says a lot of things, all right. He flexes that muscle between his ears and thinks he's doing the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
But he wants to gobble us up and turn us into a state so he can get himself on Mount Rushmore.
So this idea that we have a 30-day grace period, what do you read into that? Not too much by the sounds of things.
Well, he's just seeing what Canada's going to do if we're going to fall apart totally, and then he can just step in and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to bail you out of all your debt, but you're going to become a state.
Okay. All right. So it sounds as though, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this is far from over, in your opinion.
This is a long ways from being over.
Long way from being over. Okay, Bill, thank you for your call. We'll stop here and take a few more calls, share a few more opinions on the Tuesday Talkback on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We are winding down another busy 2 hours of Talkback here, where we've been talking about this 30-day delay in Trump's tariffs and asking people, what do you think is going on? Why do you think that happened? And where are we going to be 30 days from now? Daryl is in Calgary. Hi, Daryl.
Hi there, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Daryl. Thank you. What's your opinion here?
Well, I'm not surprised by Trump and what he's done. He pretty much came out swinging. He's pulling the rope of both Mexico and Canada, and he's just getting the attention of the world as he always does. But I think, I think he's fear-mongering. There's a lot of hoopla. There's a lot of things he will and won't do. He's just getting everybody's attention to get to the negotiation table. But we are broken as a country. Our provinces are weak, and we are susceptible. And he'll take advantage of whatever falls out of that. But I think at the end of the day, this has been really, really healthy for us.
How so?
I'm not afraid of what'll happen. This has been a frying pan in the head of those that have been opposing, energy distribution to other countries, pipelines. We've been driven by voters and people with opinions that have a voice and social media that shouldn't have a voice. They really don't have the education to know we were trying to do good things for this country, trying to diversify, get into markets that would benefit us, get us higher revenues as a country. Those taxes that we gain as a country that we all benefit from, but instead they became ultra-focused and they ended up shutting down our pipelines. It really hurt us. This is now the opportunity. I hope Trump's lesson lasts longer. My concern is it isn't long enough and people will forget. We need that frying pan hit in the forehead to stick, and we need to start diversifying ourselves now. So I think maybe what we've done is we silenced the bad voices, and now we're going to get the intelligent people stepping up. And if we get government and industry working together, we'll diversify our energy. We'll all be in a better place. We'll also start looking at manufacturing, doing more in Western Canada. Why are we sending our raw products to countries like the U.S. without that diversification? So I think we could have a boom. So instead of taking the government money, if things happen, and we do have to put money into helping people, we should. But let's focus that money on diversifying ourselves, creating a made in Canada approach, and let's get this country on its feet. I think we can really do some good things. This has been the wake-up call, and all Canadians need to pay attention. And if we do the right things, we're going to do way better. So
all right.
That's my opinion.
All right. Okay. Well, very well said. And, fingers crossed, certainly one of those projects that would help us diversify would be the Energy East pipeline, which has come up time and time again. But once again, we have to consider the Quebec factor. Quebec politics was the major obstacle in the dream of Energy East. The Trudeau Liberals, I don't think, have washed their hands of that. They were more than willing to let various Quebec politicians, like various mayors of Montreal, well, the ones that weren't in jail at the time, dance on the graves of the Energy East pipeline. And then, of course, TransCanada finally pulled the plug. But yesterday, an English language news reporter from the Canadian Press asked Premier Legault, hey, buddy, what about Energy East now? And he did not give a ringing endorsement. He said there is no social acceptability for that pipeline.
You know what?
In Quebec.
I wonder, Rob, is it social acceptability? What I see is we all talk like we're a big country and we're all hugging and we're together, we're pulling together. We're very divided by commerce. The money that flows across border into the U.S. from Quebec, the energy that flows, the gas that flows, the reciprocal arrangement relationships they have far exceed the relationship we have as a country from province to province. That's been the problem. So unless you break those commercial interests, right?
Okay, we got to go. Thank you. Very great discussion today, as always, with our listeners and our callers. And we'll be back tomorrow and do it all over again with new topics, more of your phone calls. It's another busy news day. Bring you right up to date next on News Radio.